Hello there, my name is Dan. Thank you for joining me. And today I'm going to talk about why I ended up choosing the Superior Wilderness Designs Frameless 30 pack over some of its main competitors. Now this is my final part of a 3-part series on the SWD30. In the first part, I did a full review of the pack, and in part 2, I showed you how I packed all my gear into this pack. If you want to check out those 2 videos, take a look at the link above or check out the description below. And all the packs that I'll be discussing are very similar to the Frameless 30 in terms of volume and weight. They're all between 36 to 40 liters and somewhere around 10 to 15 ounces or so. Now before we begin, I do need to mention one huge disclaimer, and that is the fact that I have not actually tried any of the other packs I'm going to mention. Everything I'm going to talk about is just born out of my own research and out of my own preferences and opinions of what I want to have in a pack. So what I'm going to do is briefly talk about each of the other packs that I considered and why I ended up not choosing them, and then go into a little more detail on the closest second for this pack. Okay, the first couple of packs that I looked at were from Gossamer Gear. The first one was the Murmur 36. Now this is a 36 liter pack, and it was the lightest one that I had taken a look at. You can get this pack down to only 8.5 ounces, which is pretty incredible. Now they accomplished that through very thin material. They used 30D on most of the pack and 70D in some higher wear areas. So I was a bit concerned about that because I do tend to kind of abuse my packs a little bit. So 30D, which is just a little bit thicker than my down jacket, was a little concerning to me. But the biggest thing that was just an absolute deal killer was the fact that the shoulder straps have little to no padding to them whatsoever. So I use this without a hip belt. So all the weight on my pack, all the weight from the pack is entirely on my shoulders. And my shoulders already get pretty sore, so not having any padding whatsoever was a total deal breaker for me. So I moved on from the Murmur, but I also took a look at the Gossamer Gear Kumo 36. Also a 36 liter pack, a little bit heavier, but it does have thicker material. It uses 70D in most spots and then 100D in some higher wear areas. But there were a couple things I didn't like about it, mostly some of the smaller features. First, it did not have any daisy chains on the shoulder straps. I personally love daisy chains because I can attach a whole bunch of stuff to them like I can with this SWD. So I find daisy chains really versatile, and was kind of bummed that the Kumo did not have those. And secondly, the side pockets used elastic instead of a drawstring like you have on the SWD, where you can cinch down the side pockets nice and tight. I really like having that on side pockets, so it was kind of a bummer to me again that the Kumo did not have that. So I moved on from Gossamer Gear and I took a look at the Mountain Laurel Designs Burn. This is a 38 liter pack, 14 ounces, and it looked pretty good. It had some of the features that I would like to have on a pack, but the 2 things that I really didn't like were, number 1, you could not remove the hip belt. I do not use the hip belt at all on the SWD. It's just a small webbing strap anyway, as it is on pretty much all these packs I'm going to talk about. So the webbing strap doesn't transfer any weight to your hips really. It's just kind of there to keep the pack a little closer to your body. But I don't use it anyway, and I really wanted the option to remove it. The other thing I didn't like was the fact that the side pockets are partially made of mesh. Now, I generally don't mind having mesh on some areas, like the front pocket I actually prefer to have mesh, but when it comes to the side pockets, I would rather just have a solid material because it is more durable. So because of those 2 reasons, I moved on from the Burn. So next I took a look at the Palante Simple Pack V2. This is version 2 of their pack. It's a 40 liter pack, and as the name would imply, it's a pretty simple pack, which is something I really like. But there are, of course, a couple things I did not like about it. Number 1, again, did not have any daisy chains on the shoulder straps, and instead just uses 2 lycra mesh pockets like it does on the Kumo. Again, I don't like having this because I can't attach anything at all to the shoulder straps like I can with this SWD. And the second thing I didn't like is they have a lycra mesh pocket on the bottom of the pack. Now it's actually kind of cool because you can stash anything that you want throughout the day in that pocket, and it is fairly easy to reach behind you. But as I mentioned, I tend to just kind of throw my pack down and I kind of abuse these packs a little bit. So having a Lycra pocket on the very bottom of the pack isn't great for durability. So I chose not to go with Palante. All right, on to my last comparison and the closest competitor for me to the SWD, the Zpacks Nero. Now this is a very popular pack. It's 38 liters, just like the SWD, and it's between 12.9 to 11.9 ounces, depending on whether or not you use a foam pad for the back panel. A couple things that I really liked about the Nero. Number one, I did like that foam back panel. I was a little uneasy about using a pack without a foam back panel. I've always been used to having some kind of foam back there. So I like that this pack came with some foam on the back panel. Now, I ended up not having any issues at all with the SWD. As long as I pack this intelligently, I'm perfectly comfortable without having a foam back panel. But nevertheless, it was a positive for me with the Zpacks Nero. I also really like the fact that it's a completely waterproof design. Now, X-Pack, like they use on the SWD, is a waterproof material, but they do not seal or tape the seams, so water can penetrate through the seams on the SWD. But with the Zpacks, just like pretty much everything else that they make, it's made out of Dyneema composite fiber, which is waterproof, and they do tape the seams. Zpacks still recommends that you use a liner or dry bag, just in case any water does get in the pack, but for all intents and purposes, it is a virtually waterproof pack. And the last thing that I, of course, loved about the Zpacks Nero was daisy chains! Have I made my point about the daisy chains yet? Yes, the Zpacks Nero has daisy chains, a big win in my opinion. Again, love, love, love having daisy chains. But alas, there were obviously some things about the Nero that I did not like and ended up being why I chose the SWD. My first issue is that they use elastic in the side pockets instead of a strap that you can cinch. I don't know, I just really love having the ability to cinch down whatever I put in the side pockets to make it nice and secure. So I just really don't prefer having elastic. The Nero also has kind of a weird top closure system. Instead of using just clips like it does on the SWD-30, it uses line lock adjusters, and then you can just cinch that down from the top on either side. So to open it up, you have to just loosen up the line lock adjusters all the way and then roll it up that way. It's not necessarily a problem or an issue. I have heard some other people complain about that. It's just not a real preference of theirs. So not a huge negative in my opinion, but nevertheless, I just prefer the regular old-fashioned clip for a roll top style design. Another negative for me is the volume of the pack. Now, it is the same overall 38 liters for both the Nero and the SWD, but the main pack body on the SWD is supposedly 30 liters, and it's only 25 liters on the Nero. So I prefer to have more volume on the interior of the pack, since that is where I'm going to put most of my larger items. So having larger volume on the SWD for the main pack body was a big plus for me. And then lastly, this is probably the biggest issue for me on the Nero. I was worried about the potential discomfort from the hip belt attachment points. Now on the SWD, it has just one hip belt attachment points on the bottom that you can thread the hip belt through, and they really stay out of your way if you're not using it, so it does not rub against your back at all. But on the Nero, it actually uses 3 different attachment points on either side, so you can adjust where you want to place the hip belt on your back. Now, adjustability is always a good thing, right? But because it is so much larger on the Nero, I was worried that it might be rubbing up against my back as I'm hiking. Now again, I have not actually tried it, so I don't know if that is an issue, especially if you are using the foam back panel. It might not be, but nevertheless, I was worried about that and didn't want to chance it. So what do you all think? Has anyone used any of these packs? Do you like them? Do you not like them? Let me know in the comment section below. And if you have any questions at all about this pack or why, again, I ended up choosing this one over some of the other competitors, let me know in the comment section. Well, thank you very much for watching. I hope you got something out of this. Again, if you want to see part 1 or part 2 of this series, check out the description below. Thank you very much again for joining me. And as always, have fun out there. It's hard to do this when I have a cold.